Hello, everyone. Halloween approaches ever closer, and so I'm back to talk to you a little bit more about my top 50 favorite horror movies. So I believe I am at number 39, and this is where I pick up with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I am not, as a grown woman, I mean, when I was a kid, I loved him, but as a grown woman, I'm not the biggest fan of Abbott and Costello. But this one deserves a place on the list because it does manage to be funny. And it also brings back Bela Lugosi in his second performance as Dracula since the 1931 film. This was his comeback performance as Dracula. And he does the whole thing with great aplomb. Also, Lon Chaney Jr. is with us, reprising his role of Lawrence Talbot the Wolfman, and he has one of the best exchanges with the guys when he says that when the moon is full, he turns into a wolf. The response is, "Yeah, you and about 100 million other guys." So, nice chuckle there. And there's my Ross. Okay, I've got the door open. It is National Cat Day. And thought if they were to come into the room, I would give them a pet. So that's number 39 on my list. Number 38 is a strange one that will be a kind of acquired taste. Not everybody's going to love this, but if you're in the right frame of mind, it's a really fun movie if you just want a movie that is absolutely pure, unadulterated 1970s. The Phantom of the Paradise, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Paul Williams, is a really good bet for that. So much 70s. It retells the story of the Phantom of the Opera with, instead of a opera impresario masked and hiding in the bowels of the Paris Opera House. Here we have a disfigured rock musician, songwriter who just was hidden away in the mansion of a big recording producer mogul. Then this is the role that Paul Williams plays. And what makes this one stand out for me, aside from the fact that it is just quite interesting to watch, is that it has one of the best soundtracks. So many good songs in this one, and well worth a watch. Next on the list is a movie that a lot of you will be shocked made this low, that makes its appearance this low. And that is 1931's Dracula. Bela Lugosi became a star playing Dracula after nobody wanted him when they were searching, when the big heads of Universal were searching around for someone to play the role of Dracula after the success of the stage play. They thought of just about everybody except the guy that had played the role on stage. But finally, Lugosi ended up with the role and he became a star. And the studio did not regret taking a chance on him because this movie made bank. He is great. Lugosi is the reason to watch this film. Also, and I've heard he's kind of polarizing, but you either love Dwight Frye's portrayal of Renfield or you hate it. You either think it's marvelously over the top or very off-puttingly over the top. I happen to be in the marvelously over the top camp because he does, with his absolute manic energy, he does win my sympathy, particularly since he is given the role of Jonathan Harker in the book. He is actually the real estate agent who goes to Transylvania to meet with Dracula to arrange the sale of Carfax Abbey in England. And so we see him as a normal man, something that you don't really get in other versions of this story. And that makes his tragedy all the more palpable. So, Dwight Fry and Bela Lugosi make this movie. If and also Edward Van Sloan does make a pretty compelling Van Helsing. And if everybody else in the cast were up to that level, then this movie would be higher on the list. The reason it's not is because the hero and heroine are two of the blandest characters in 1930s Universal horror movies. David Manners and Helen Chandler, they are just given nothing to do, nothing that would make us really care about them except for the fact that they're young and pretty. So when they face a threat from this evil creature, we're like, okay, all right, well, okay, we want to stop the evil creature, but still, is it really worth the effort considering it's them, these two young people who only show personality when they are touched by evil? It's interesting that Chandler becomes a lot more compelling when she's under Dracula's spell than she is when she is not. So that's a pretty big flaw for me. So that ends up at number 37. Interestingly enough, at number 36 is another telling of the same story, and that would be 2024's Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. This one makes the list. For one thing, it's gorgeous to look at. The overall look, the overall aesthetic of the film is so wonderfully gothic. And it also does a wonderful job of exploring the idea of the lure, the appeal, the dark appeal of the vampire that somehow, and it's not romantic. It's not romantic at all, but something in him draws us. And Lily Rose Depp plays Dracula's main victim quite effectively. Also on hand to make these festivities worth watching is Willem Dafoe playing the Van Helsing role. He's called something else. I would have to look it up on IMDb to find out, but he is. I love Willem Dafoe. He's always worth a watch. And it is just fascinating. It holds your attention, or at any rate, it held mine. And again, a movie that is set in the 1830s and has that very gothic period horror feel is a pretty easy sell for me. So Nosferatu from 2024 comes in at number 36. At number 35, I have The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And this one took a while to grow on me, but I have found that after a couple of rewatchings, it's really rather a compelling story, and the creature himself is a fascinating figure living in the depths of the Amazon, having his territory disturbed by a bunch of nosy Parker scientists, poking and prodding where they don't really belong. And surprisingly, Julia Adams' heroine is not as much of a pushover. Yes, at the climax, she is very much a damsel in distress. But in this 1954 film, she plays a scientist. She and the two men who form kind of a love triangle with her, they are all scientists, and they're taken seriously as such. This is not a camp horror film, and there is no suggestion that she should dial back her scientific expertise, that she should become more womanly, and that she should give up her career. That garbage came around in the sequels. Well, thankfully, this first film doesn't have that nonsense. So, I do like this movie. I find the Amazon setting fascinating, and each character has their defining moments where they actually create a personality. So these characters come to life, for instance, far more than the two young lovers, David Manners and Helen Chandler, did in Dracula. So, Creature from the Black Lagoon comes in at number 35. At number 34, The Innocents with Deborah Carr, which is an adaptation of Henry James' novella The Turn of the Screw, which was made in the early 1960s. And it's a beautiful, another one, like Nosferatu from 2024. It's one of those movies that is just fascinating and gorgeous to look at. It's got eerie vibes to burn. And just the sheer aura of the thing can grip you. It's also held together by a very strong performance by Deborah Carr as a governess who is convinced that the children she has charge of are being haunted by ghosts, and it's up to her to protect them. But it's left ambiguous as to whether or not there really are ghosts, and whether or not, in her zeal to protect them, the governess may be doing them a lot more harm than good. So it's a fascinating psychological horror drama as well. And Carr is amazing in the central role. And the fact that she was given no Academy attention is just yet another sign that the Academy Awards don't really know what to do about horror films. They don't know how to respond to horror films, which is a shame because since I last recorded this vlog, I have seen Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and it has become my favorite movie of the year. I think it is wonderful, wonderfully acted, wonderfully atmospheric. It's a gripping take on the story, on the Frankenstein story. Although, much like the 1931 film, it's not exactly a faithful adaptation of Shelley's novel, but it is a wonderful take on the story, on the ideas, and I'm going to have to work it into my list somehow, even though this list of 50 was made well before I saw the film. So Frankenstein is my number one. Sinners is my number two. You're going to hear about that later in my list. And just watch and see neither of them get the attention from the Academy that they deserve because of the genre that they're in. So, see you momentarily to give you the next few titles on my list. Thank you.